And my mic is on, correct? I believe it's on. Good. All right, we're good tonight. I would appreciate questions, not lengthy one necessarily, but kind of overview questions for me as I prepare for that. It'll be June 28th, Lord willing, to do kind of an overview night. If you can give me some of those questions ahead of time, that would help kind of guide where I'm going with it. Because I don't want to teach over here and you're all going, well, this is what we wanted to know. So if you have definite things you want to know, fine. If not, I'll just do a general overview, and again, a focus on Revelation, the portrait of Jesus Christ, and in 4 weeks, Lord willing. So next week will be 47 on the 7th, 14th, 48, 21st, 49, and the last one, if you want to call it 50, we'll see if I can get something put together, and we'll go from there. All right, question?
I forgot to mention, we have Matthew's friend's dad is refurbishing the big barbecue. And he's ordered all the parts and everything. We got to go ahead.
The church barbecue?
Yeah.
Oh.
And he's getting new tires for it tomorrow. And I mean, it shouldn't be towed. Those tires are getting really weathered. So.
They just said bake all day, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
all right.
That's a phrase that he wants to have it to us as soon as he can get the parts and get it all installed. He said it's not in bad shape, just needs good cleaning and some parts.
So when do you plan on using it next?
Father's Day. Father's Day, yeah.
All right. So it may be on a trailer, but it'll be here. If you didn't get the wheels.
It's already on it.
Oh, yeah. On another trailer. Trailer on a trailer. All right, study number 46. Your microphones are on. You've written very good. Who'd like to read the, I hate to take all of this, just to 9 and 10 to start with. Revelation chapter 21, verses 9 and 10. This is study number 46. Who'd like to read? All right, Jim.
And one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came and spoke with me, saying, Come here, I shall show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And he carried me away in spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God.
So they put a holy in front of city.
Yep.
I don't think mine does that. So again, I'm always curious. I'm just looking on this version. 21, verse 9. Interesting. Yeah, that isn't here, but it's not how I typed it up, so I got it. I must have been using something. Well, I'm using this one. And this one's always different. I don't know what all the numbers are, why they keep moving things around. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They're all describing the same, but my mechanical diagram is different. That's what throws me off. Okay, so when you go back to the questions here, who came and spoke with John in verse 9?
One of the 7 angels.
One of the 7 angels.
Who had?
7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues.
No, isn't that interesting? The first time the angel appeared was to do what? Major deal. I mean, the biggest part of what they were there for.
Pour the bowls out.
To do
Pour the bowls out.
okay, judgment.
Judgment.
To be a part of God's judgment. We don't know which angel this is, but it was an angel that came in judgment. And what's the angel doing here?
Well, full of the 7 last plagues.
If I can't hear you, I don't know if it's showing up on the mic. So,
Full of the 7 last plagues.
yeah, that's what they did at the beginning. And what are they doing here?
Oh,
Showing John
him.
things.
Showing John, exhibiting to John the holy city, Jerusalem. So you don't want to lock angels in. Just because an angel is a bad guy and has to be part of a judgment, the next week they could be doing something totally different, even playing golf. But whatever it may be, just kidding. But whatever it may be, you don't want to lock them in. God sends them out to do a mission. They carry it out as his messenger, and they're ready for the next thing. So we kind of see what's going on here. But this is one of those angels. Why didn't God use an angel that was a nice angel, that had no connection with judgment?
He didn't want to.
He didn't want to. I mean, that's totally up to him. I don't know, but he goes out of his way to tell you it's one of those angels. So what they're saying is, God says, I treat unbelievers this way, and I treat believers this way. The curse on an unbeliever, the blessing on a believer. It is irregardless of who the angel is, but you have a decision. People you share the gospel with have a decision. Why are you telling them about Jesus Christ's death and resurrection? Because they are
Lost.
lost. They are sinners. They are answerable to a holy God. They're in big trouble. They've got an eternity in eternal death in the lake of fire. Why would I wish that on anyone? I don't mean anyone. So I'm constantly trying to reach out to them. Christ did that. Jesus Christ did that day by day by day when he was on planet Earth with his own people. And how they respond? John 1:11. He came unto his own,
And
his own received him not. Did he give up in a week?
No.
Did he give up in a year?
No.
Did he give up in 3 years? Did he ever give up? No. You're really good. You're really on top of it tonight. Yeah. So, here's one of those angels, and he points out specifically who this guy was, and what did this angel command in verse 9?
Come here.
Down here.
Come here. It's in a command form, and why do that? Why should John do that?
I'll show you the bride of
Yeah, I will show you the
the bride,
bride,
the wife.
the wife of the Lamb. And who is this referring to? You went back to Revelation 19, 7 and 8 to clarify a little bit, but who is this bride? Believers in general, specifically the church, all right? And it tells you in one of those verses, the saints at the end of verse 8. So again, which would just be true believers. But he's showing him a picture. Why does he have to have him? Remember way back, what is it, verse 1? When he said, no, that wasn't verse 1. No, it's right. It's right here. I got it myself ahead a week again because what I just put together. So I'm back to this one. He's going to show him the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And in order to do that, really is a question I should have asked. What did the angel do?
He
Carried him away.
Carried me away in
Spirit.
spirit, not the spirit, no definite article. Carried me away in spirit to great and high mountain. Now, why did he have to carry him away?
To show him the bride.
Okay, he's showing him the bride. Why couldn't he just why could he just set up a movie screen right there on the rock and, Paul?
We didn't have movie screens then.
Hey, all this translation also try to lead you to believe it's the Holy Spirit by capitalizing the Spirit. Oh, okay. Well, I
They
just
shouldn't
wanted
do
to
that,
bring it- Okay, I just wanted to see if I was.
They're all following the party line.
Huh?
They're all following the party line.
Oh, God.
The translators, this word's dangerous. When you get a translation, they're afraid to change something that has been locked in. And I keep giving you the example when he talks about the young maiden in Isaiah, shall be with child, this one blank, 9. I really went blank. 9:6. I get it mixed up between that and 11. But the maiden will be a child. When the RSV, the Revised Standard Version, translated that young maiden instead of virgin, a bunch of people just said, that's it, we're done with that book. We're not using the Revised Standard Version. What does the word mean in the Hebrew? Young maiden. Why was that critical in the context? Because Isaiah was going to apply it in what he's writing to a young maiden who wasn't a virgin. And it would apply to a virgin because it can mean that as well. It doesn't exclude that, which ultimately would be Mary in Matthew 1. So it's a very accurate reading. You don't want to say virgin there because it makes no sense in the context when you go further and find out that this woman is with child. And again, you have to go back and look at that, and I don't want to take time for that.
Isaiah 7:14.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It wasn't 9, it wasn't 11, it's 7. 7 or 11. But the issue there is you have to, you want to translate accurately, but they're afraid to. They're afraid to take something out that people think, oh, this is how it's always been. So we're not going to change that. And they'll look at it and say it's not a big deal. Because they think, well, the Holy Spirit did. The Holy Spirit didn't do it. Who took him there? One of the 7 angels. And he did it in spirit, which means, did I give you a line for that? No, I just asked you why. What is in spirit? We did that. I gave you a line in another study we did. Why say in spirit?
It's not physical.
It's not physical. Where's he taking him to ultimately, we're gonna see?
To Mount Zion,
Okay, ultimately, which is where?
in Jerusalem,
Which is where?
Israel.
which is up.
In heaven. You can't take John physically to heaven. He does not have a glorified body. So he takes him in spirit, non-physical, but he takes him to the place, because it's a literal place. Again, I swim in my commentaries and different books I look up. They keep using words like figurative, metaphorical, symbolic, and I'm going, you guys, quit doing that with the Bible. John is literally being taken to the New Jerusalem, but he's being taken in spirit so he can see it with his own eyes. He's witnessing something that, from this impression, 2,000 years ago was already there. And we're going to see this going to come down. Not how it's typically taught today, but it's what it says. So I don't want to add to it. But why is he taken there? What did you write in that little bitty line I gave you?
The city of the living God,
I'm sorry?
the city of the living God.
Okay, took him to the city of the living God, took him to the holy city, but why? What did he want him to do?
He wanted them to see what was going to happen.
See it with his own eyeballs. Let me throw something out because I may forget to. When you study, when you come down here and you'll see it, what does this city look like?
Something we.
What's it made out of?
All kinds of precious
The
stones.
two critical things that are mentioned are gold and what kind of gold?
Pure gold.
Crystal gold.
Transparent gold. It's like,
Transparent.
what is that? But that means you can see through it. What's the other thing that the walls are made of?
Stone, precious stone.
Which stone? Jasper. And how is that stone described in here? We're testing to see what you remember.
Clear.
It's crystal clear. The gold streets are clear. The walls are clear. What does that imply? What is able to come right through everything that's there?
Light.
Light.
Does that mean maybe we can see into and see what they're not?
That I don't know. Because one of them uses translucent, which means light can go through, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can have a clear view. So you're looking at this thing and you're realizing when we're there with resurrected bodies, what are our bodies going to be like?
We don't know.
Matthew 13, 40, 43. See, in my old age, I'm losing it all.
It would be like,
Matthew 13, 43. What's going to happen to the righteous?
oh, they're gonna glow.
They're gonna shine
As the
as the sun.
sun. This is going to be a very interesting place. It's not going to be just the light of Christ, which is going to be far greater, but it'll be the light of all of the believers that are in there. The resurrected believers, they will shine. That's where you get this picture here. So when you go back to it, and he says, I'm going to show you the bride. The city is clear. What are you really seeing? The bride of the Lamb. You're actually seeing the glow of the people that are there. It's a focus on Jesus and the people, not the city itself, even though he gives you a very clear description. So I throw that out. We'll come back to it as we go along here, because you may have questions. So he carries them away in spirit to a great and high mountain. Why does he describe it as a great and high mountain? We've talked about some of this. Zechariah talks about the New Jerusalem is going to be
Rise up.
raised up. Don't know exactly what that looks like, but here it's calling it a great and high mountain. There's going to be a broad plain that in Revelation 20, verse 9, all the people gather up there on the broad plain of the earth and attacking the city. There's going to be something very different than it is today. The sea, the eastern and the western seas may be much further away than they are today. It's all going to be rearranged. You don't want to get your idea in your head that it's going to look like what it looks like today. There may be far less ocean, but it's going to be there. I don't know. He doesn't give us those details. We don't need them. But where did this angel carry away John 2 when you go to Hebrews 12:22? And that's where you were starting to all answer me.
Jack, just a second. So what you're saying is that as John is being taken in spirit to heaven, because so in heaven there is a great high mountain.
New Jerusalem, holy city, Mount Zion.
So even it isn't, I mean, the New Jerusalem that is in heaven is still, heaven has this high mountain that.
It has the city up there already.
But she's saying all these descriptive things are there.
I shouldn't say already. They're taking John to see it, so I'm assuming it's there. But again, John may be looking into the future like many of these things, he's looking into the future. So I should pull that back and say, it doesn't have to exist in the first century, but John is being taken up and being given a picture of clear vision of what it looks like. So is that,
And is,
Okay, well, it was just that it said he took him up to a great high mountain
well,
to
so
show
is
him.
the mountain also in heaven?
Is that mountain also in heaven? The New Jerusalem is sitting on a.
That's the
high
implication,
mountain
yeah.
in heaven. Oh, okay.
because first off, he tells you to a great high mountain and showed me the city. So you're assuming that's where it's sitting down, that's where it's sitting, is on a great high mountain. It is raised up above everything on the earth from everything we can see in Scripture. Zechariah 14 would be one of them, but there are some other locations. So Hebrews 12:22 talks about this place being called what?
Mount Zion.
Mount Zion,
And to the city of the living God,
city of the living
the
God.
heavenly Jerusalem, and to myriads of angels.
Okay, so the angels are there. As you look at a few more, the bigger passage there in Hebrews 12, Revelation 3:12, Galatians 4:26, we are in heaven. He's taken them to God. He's taken them to Jesus. He's taken them to the Jerusalem that's above. So all of that is kind of being wrapped up in this. And this is what John is witnessing. This is what he's visiting as I put on your thing there. And then he receives the vision there. And specifically what he's taken him for, you could say this, I'll take you all to Hawaii. How many of you have been on the island of Kauai?
I know.
Kauai. Really? Yeah. It's called the Garden Isle. It's kind of was the out of the way place. It was kind of like uninhabited. Back in the, I went in '76. There was one hotel there, and I went on a choir tour. It wasn't anything. It was a junior college choir tour that we went over there. But there was nothing there. '84, they have a hurricane. All the chickens got loose. Now when you go over to Kauai, their mascot or their state bird is the chicken. And you can buy shirts, they just decided that rather than killing them, they're everywhere. Everywhere. And they're gorgeous. All different colors and shapes and sizes. But if I were to take you over and say, I'm going to show you something, because obviously now I realize you haven't been there. I'm going to take you to the mini Grand Canyon of the state of Hawaii. And you go up there, Waimea Canyon is massive. You look at it and you go, how does it even fit on this little bitty island? And you go up there and it's a national park, I think is up there, national forest, I don't know what maybe it's national forest. And it runs all this, people are all dressed up just like regular rangers. They have all the stuff up there you can go see and watch. But when you go out to the lookout, I would take you there, and that's kind of what John's doing. He's in spirit because he's not physically allowed to go there yet, or however God is arranging this. And he's taken him to a special site, and now you get to the site. This is what I want to show you. Oh yeah, we went to Hawaii, and it's fun to go to the beach and see some things over there, but this is really what I want to show you. And Bev and I just happened to wander up there. I don't think we even knew much about it. We just drove the road and went up and up and up and up, and all of a sudden we drove around a corner and there's that canyon, kind of like the Grand Canyon. You go, wow, this thing is massive. It's gigantic. I forget what they said, 1/40th the size of the Grand Canyon, something like that. But this is what he's doing. So you understand, this angel is a tour guide for John. He's taking him on tour. This is what he wants to show him. And this is what we're going to spend this week and next week, the rest of it, looking at. So someone is, well, we can do this little part here first. What else did the angel do in verse 10?
He showed me the city Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God.
All right, that's what he's showing him. So in this case, again, I have to say, yes, this is still future, because now it's coming down out of the sky, out from the first heaven, from God. So what did this do? Now we got to read some more. I'm getting into the next section here. Someone we're going to read 11 to 21 as we focus in on the city. This is a long section. How about somebody just reading 11 to 16? Who'd like to do that? Okay, Isaiah, and then 17 to 21. A second victim. Okay, thank you very much. All right.
21:11. Having the glory of God, her brilliance was like a very costly stone, as a stone of crystal clear jasper. It had a great and high wall with 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names were written on them, which are those of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, and 3 gates on the north, and 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. And the wall of the city had 12 foundation stones, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And the one who spoke with me had a gold measuring rod to measure the city, and its gates, and its wall. And the city is laid out as a square, and its length is as great as the width. And he measured the city with the rod, 1,500 miles. Its length and width and height are equal. And he measured its wall 72 yards, according to human measurements, which are also angelic measurements.
The material of the wall was jasper, and the city was pure gold like clear glass. The foundation stones of the city wall were adorned with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation stone was jasper, the second sapphire, the third I don't know what that is.
Chalcedon.
Chalcedon, okay. The fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase,
Hard name.
okay, the 11th jacinth, the 12th amethyst, and the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each one of the gates was a single pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold like transparent glass.
Fascinating explanation. So let's look at it a little bit here. The next question with verse 11, what did the city have?
The glory of God.
Okay, it just makes this little statement, having the glory of God. Like, that's no big deal. What's that glory like? When Jesus was transfigured in Matthew 17:3, what was that like?
Brightness.
Okay, and that was a mild form for men to be able to see. What was it like with Moses?
He could only see the back.
And the what?
He could only see the back of God.
Okay, when Moses actually, okay. But his glory was such that the mountain burned,
Yeah.
and Moses had to be limited, and nobody could even touch the mountain. They couldn't even get close to the mountain. So you start looking at it, the book of Ezekiel, it starts off with the glory of God in chapter 1, and that glory, if you follow the book of Ezekiel, and this is what you want to look for when you study. You want to get an overview type of outline, but you realize the glory moves and moves and moves, and pretty soon it leaves in the book of Ezekiel. And then it comes back. So if you just take the word glory and go to your concordance and look for glory in the book of Ezekiel, you'll see how. But the glory is a big deal. What was in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve?
The glory.
The glory of God. Why would they have to get kicked out of a little garden and have to live in the rest of the planet? What was so special about that garden? It wasn't the plants.
But
God was talking.
It was the glory of God. It
I
was
thought
the
it was-
person of God who walked with them in the cool of the day.
I
Okay, I don't want to
thought-
get off into another thing, but
Yeah,
question?
I always thought that it's because the tree of life was there and he didn't want them eating of the tree of
Why
life.
didn't you just cut it down?
Then it was death.
Why block them? Why not just put the angels right around the tree of life
Why question God's motive?
and have, no, I'm just saying. We're guessing at what he even did or didn't do. So, but I'm saying, we don't see the glory of God in Scripture, but it never leaves him. So if there's a time when Adam and Eve could walk with him in the cool of the day, they're with the garden, I'm sorry, I didn't see a hand. They are with a God who is on all of his glory until they sinned.
Never.
Yeah.
What about in John 1, when it says, in 14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. Glory is of the only Son from the Father.
You're going to see that word used in a variety of ways. Doxa, you can't just give it one basic thing, but we did see, Matthew 17:3, we saw his glory. We saw his majesty, we saw his brilliance, we saw his, trying to think of the word, honor, his praise, his recognition. Doxa is a very common, very broadly used word. So it doesn't mean you saw all of his glory, but you did see his glory. You can't be around God without seeing aspects of that. But in this flesh, you cannot see God in his full glory. You cannot live and see God and be in his presence until we're glorified. So, and next week we'll talk about that. I have you translate glory twice for that reason next week. And one of them, the second one I said, define glory again. Because you need to ask yourself, what is trying to be brought out by this word when it's used? And it will vary as to how it comes across. We'll see that next week. But Here, the city had the glory of God, and so when you looked up here, which you're going to do again next week, what words did you put down for this?
For what?
The city had the glory of God. Define this word.
Talks of opinion, hence praise.
Okay, it can mean opinion, and then what happened?
Hence praise.
His praise,
Hence,
Praise.
splendor,
splendor,
Divine
majesty,
quality,
divine
quality.
quality, okay,
majesty,
majesty,
Most exalted state.
okay, interesting, magnificence, brightness. This word is a very broad idea here. Ron?
Worship.
Okay? It can lead to that, but what you're seeing is His glory, what you do about it is worship. And it will cause you to worship Him. But as you're looking at this, what was her brilliance or her light like?
Very valuable stone.
Okay, very valuable or very costly stone, which is as a stone,
Of
Crystal clear jasper.
crystal clear jasper. And so what could that represent today for us? And it may have represented it back then. They don't know. A lot of these are hard to come across. We don't use this. They have different names for the same stones all over the world, and so this has gotten really confusing. But jasper, if it's crystal clear, you can lean it toward it being a
diamond.
diamond. And some people do, but you can't prove that. It's just, it would fit really well with being crystal clear, having no flaws whatsoever, and yet being very costly, and they're calling it jasper here. So I'm not sure, and that's where you got to be careful you don't lock onto these. Every book I looked up gave me different colors on these stones, it seemed like, so it's very hard. How was the New Jerusalem described physically here? Starting in verse 12, what did it have? A great high wall with
12 gates.
12 gates. So when I had you look up gates, 4440,
Entrance passage.
a what?
Entrance passage.
Okay, entrance passage,
Gateway,
gateway,
porch,
porch,
portal, portal.
okay, portal, not portable, portal. And Vines brought out, these could actually represented
Vestibule, vestibule, whatever.
vestibule, kind of an entryway, but they could have been gate towers. And you kind of get that flavor more from the Old Testament, and Vines, my Vines had that in there. So what it would picture here, when you came up to one of the three gates on each side of the city, there was actually a tower there, which would have been normal around gates. They would have put them for defensive purposes typically, but this is what it may be describing. Just the word gates may represent a porch or gateway, but also gate towers. But the great and high wall, how high is the wall? Jim and I talked about this a little bit today. Okay, the implication potentially is 1,500 if that's the right number there. We'll talk about that.
Well,
It's 144 times 18 inches.
Cubits, was that the height or the width?
That was the height.
But they all equal.
they're all equal.
It's all equal.
It's a square.
it
That's
doesn't-
what they'll say. Many of them will say that's the height of the wall, but that's not what it says in the Greek.
it's the width of the wall.
It's the width of the wall. So the implication there is its thickness is what he's measuring. But nowhere are we given that except that the cube is all the same. So what would it be like to have a 1,500 mile wall, high wall? 1,500 miles high.
That'd be like Canada and
space.
Mexico.
And why would you do that?
You got a lot of people.
How high do planes fly typically?
38.
38,000, which is about how many miles?
7.
Less than 8. 8 miles. They're already up there. When you put the spacecraft around, what elevation are they at? Now I'm challenging you.
It ranges on what they need to do with it.
To get high enough that the gravity won't pull them down and they can hover in the same space, it's minimal. When you talk about 1,500 miles, if that's what the number is, yeah. But isn't that an appropriate city for God to make? This isn't made by man. What's the new heaven, new earth like? Don't know. What's going to stop God? What was it like before the flood when you had a vapor canopy up there? How far out was that? Don't know. So we have a lot of unknowns, and yet people read this and go, that's got to be symbolic. That's got to be figurative. That's got to be some kind of a metaphorical thing. And it's like, who are you limiting? This isn't a man-made thing. This is God. And so, again, we'll talk about some of that. I think the numbers are probably less than that, and I'll show you why I think that. But they lay them out. So you have this great and high wall, and if it's 1,500 miles, that is very great and very high. So just so you get the impact here. Well, who were the sentries?
12
angels.
12 angels. How would you like that for your eternal duty? Or maybe they rotate. Maybe they only have to serve for a year, then they get to go do something fun.
They're bobbies.
And they're what?
They're bobbies.
Bobbies, yeah. Standing guard. But nobody's getting in. Nobody's getting past them, and why is that? Why are they there? What'd you get out of Matthew 28, 1-7?
Well, because only believers can go in.
Okay.
Unbelievers can't go in.
And why would God put angels there? According to Matthew 28, 1-7, what was I looking for?
Well,
What's Matthew 28 talking about? Last chapter of Matthew, women come to the tomb.
Resurrection.
And what?
Resurrection.
Okay, it's the resurrection of Christ.
God shook because of the fear of the angels.
These little puny angels that were just clerks with glasses on, kind of like Clark Kent, and they're shaking. Well, what were they really like? What would Roman soldiers who were
Yeah.
brute beasts, what were they afraid of? What's it tell you about them there? They were like lightning. Their garments were as white as snow. This is not normal. And they shook for fear. God definitely got their attention. Did any of them ever come to Christ? Don't know. Were they impacted by some of the things that they saw? Probably not. Remember, they went in and they wanted to be paid off to lie and say that the disciples stole them, we fell asleep, that was a death sentence. The whole thing's ridiculous, but it's kind of what we do in politics today.
Wasn't there a centurion or something said to like, this is the Son of God or something like that? You know, God, centurion said something that,
That's at the crucifixion.
oh, the crucifixion,
Yeah.
okay.
But the picture here, so why put 12 of these angels, one at each gate? What are you trying to say to people that approach the gates?
Good luck.
You better be the right person, you better have the right credentials, or you're not getting in.
Beware, yeah,
Because the gates are open all the time.
yeah.
Why have gates?
Had somewhere to put the 12 pearls.
Oh, yeah. When you got pearls that big, you had to do something with
I
them.
want to see the oysters that laid those pearls.
Yeah. So here he's laying this out, and what was the superscription number 1?
And names were written on them, which are those of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel.
Okay, so the gates have names written on them.
Is that the on the pearl then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one reason to have a pearl there. It's a place to write the names. Are all 12 names on each pearl? Or does each pearl have a name?
One name, just one name.
Okay, you can lean that way. People kind of get a little bit weird about it. But this is focusing on the gates, and I'm talking about Greek people get weird about it. How about the styles? When I use the word styles, where do you think of? Subways in New York, you ever had to go through those styles? That's all I was using. I had to find an S word. So I had to find some kind of entrance. So how did he describe them?
3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west.
Okay, and these gates are entrances, doors, access points, and again, not to get murky here, but what did Ezekiel prophesy about these gates? What he called it.
That on the north would be Reuben, Judah, and Levi.
Okay, he gave he specified where the names are going to be.
Right.
Okay, in a pattern that was not normal,
Right.
that had not been recorded that way in other places, so they're all mixed up. Well, what were the gates for? Right off.
They'd be the exits of the city.
Exits of the city. That's all he's referring to them. Now, if you studied the word exits in the Hebrew, I didn't. I should have. Usually I try to look all these things up. It could have just meant the access points. You know, exits might be how they translated it, or it could really mean exits, with the focus on people going out of the city. not necessarily people coming in. And when I thought of that, I realized if we're going to live there and if we're going to reign with Christ, what's your title going to be? Am I losing you?
You said,
If we're going to live in the city, and if we're going to reign with Christ forever and ever, what will we be called?
Probably, sir, ma'am,
Higher.
Resident.
Lord, probably the
Kings and queens. Well, I don't know if they'll call them queens. We're called kings, a generic term's given there.
well, did you say keeping us in the city, don't letting us go out?
People that live in the city are the ones that are reigning with Christ. People who can't come into the city are your unbelievers who are outside during the millennium.
I thought I heard you said that the angels are keeping us in the city, they're not letting us out.
No.
No. That's why you have gates, but they're called exits. And we're trying to understand, so the emphasis is so much more is that we'll be going out if the word simply means that. And somebody could have looked that up.
exits.
I lost you somewhere.
It's only
Exits,
for exit?
outgoing, border, a going out, an extremity, end, source, escape.
Okay, so it is putting a focus on the exit part of it, and that's why they translated exit. That's good. Sometimes that doesn't happen. We're asking why call them exits? Why not call them entrances and exits? And I don't know, but I'm just throwing it out because it's there. We're in, I lost
Where'd you come up
you.
with this exit? I don't,
We're in Ezekiel.
oh,
We move to the next question.
you're in Ezekiel, okay.
48.
48, 30 to 34. You see that
Yeah,
there? There are exits of the city. They're named for the 12 tribes of Israel, and there are 3 on each side of the 4-sided city. And the implication, what Paul brought up, is 3 of them are named for 3. So they have 1 name on the gate is probably the scenario because of how it's laid out in Ezekiel. So you would tell, and that'd make it really easy, because if you say, I'll meet you at the 12, now I lost the term there.
Yeah, Dan.
12 tribes gate, that would be very confusing. But if I tell you I'm going to meet you at Reuben gate, the gate of Reuben, then you know exactly which gate I was talking about. And we'll sit under the shade of the pearl and talk. Tap on it, goes, that real? That's really weird. But anyway, he's laying this out, and Ezekiel brings out a number of things about this. He tells you also there's 3 to the north, 3 to the east, 3 to the south, 3 to the west. He gives you a lot more information on it, but he puts them in an order. He names them in Ezekiel, and he puts them in an order that you sit there and you go, why are they in this order? Really interesting how he puts them together. Well, question?
No, I'm where you're at, it's just like exit, okay?
They all have different names on the gates. They're the names of the 12 tribes. Now you move to the substructure. The wall of the city had
12 foundations.
12 foundation stones. Just again to ask, was it 12 layers of foundation, each stone on there, or was it 12 different stones? So that'd be 3 stones per side. And again, there's just question on this. So when you see it, you're going to go, oh. You're going to see it with your own eyeballs. It's not important, it's not critical, but it is what people debate in commentaries. Paul?
No, I'm waiting for your answer.
No. I don't give answers. I let you give answers.
No, I couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah,
Okay.
I neither.
And it doesn't specify enough for us to know that, because Ezekiel doesn't talk about it, it doesn't lay it out. So it would make sense either way. If you had 12 stones that were all made out of these different layers, you end up more with what I don't want to call it a rainbow, because the colors of these stones would be unique. But you'd have stripes running across the bottom of this wall. If the wall is 1,500 miles high, how big could the foundation be?
Huge.
It could be huge. It could be clear on up and encompass the gates and be part of all of that before you ever even get to Jasper walls. I don't know. So I'm throwing these things out there so you don't ask me. I can just keep telling you, I don't know. So what was their location under the wall? And I put down here either separate stones, I put either separate or linear. That's all I put down there.
Separate or what?
Linear, Linear. Just meaning that they're lined up. They're in a line. Don't know. Which would you prefer, Paul? 12 separate stones with a name on each one. That would make sense if the pearls all got their own names, right?
And 3 on
Come
each side.
on, take a risk.
And 3 on each side, right?
If they're separate, yes.
Did the Masons set those stones?
Is it a,
No, God did.
Did the Masons set those stones?
no, this is built by God according to Hebrews 12, which makes it very unique. I still am really curious what pure gold really, what is in gold that makes it impure? And why after firing it 7 times, can't you get it out when it's 99.99% pure? Who?
You can get pure gold. It's
100%?
Is it clear?
It isn't clear.
Ah, why is it clear here?
That,
Come on, Paul.
Because it doesn't have the curse anymore.
Oh, the curse is taken away. That's the curse in the gold. And the curse that destroyed many, many men's lives who went pursuing it ridiculously. Don't get hung up on things. I got in a conversation the other day and I run into them all the time. People are saying, oh, how can I make more money? And it's like, I want to scream at people and say, that's not the question you should be asking. How can I use God's money for His glory? Is the question you ought to be asking. It's His money, it's not mine. I'm just a steward. So if He wants it to be in the bank, rather than hid under a cloth and at least make an interest, that's fine. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying that shouldn't be the focus of my life. For everything I do, I wake up looking at the stock market, looking at the Wall Street Journal and figuring out, okay, what's going on? How's my gold doing? How's my silver doing? That will dominate your life and is worthless. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it. What does Proverbs say about the righteous man? What's he have in his house?
Stores of,
He doesn't just have wealth, but he has olive oil, I think, in one of them. He has different things. It's not wrong to have possessions. It's just wrong to hoard them, to think that they're mine. They're on loan. Somebody shows up that is appropriate for me to give to, and in this day and age, I'm really hesitant to give to anybody. They're all a bunch of lazy bums and all just making demands. But anyway, I used to do that at churches. I used to give people, they came asking for money, and I'd give them jobs. In California, I had to mow the lawn. We had a big lawn at the church we were at. And then the insurance guy came to us and he goes, don't do that. If they chop their foot off mowing your lawn with your lawnmower, we will pay a fortune. You can't do that. I go, what a wasted world. And then I have to mow the lawn. But anyway, so here we go. The substructure, 12 foundation stones, their location either separate or linear. What had Abraham done? You kind of go, where does that fit in? Well, what had Abraham done in Hebrews 11, 8 to 10? Start with. What's that? God called him. Who initiated it? God. And what had Abraham did? He believed by doing what?
Obeying God.
By doing what?
he went to a place he didn't know, and he lived as an alien on earth, waiting for God's city.
Okay, he left home. He left Ur of the Chaldees, left everything behind, all the things that were normal to him, that you were comfortable with, and just because God told him to go, and he went to a land that he did not know. What was he looking for?
The city.
So look for
The
the
city, definite article.
the city of God.
That was
Oh, that's
good.
interesting.
Whose foundation was set by God, the architect and builder.
Okay, I said Hebrews 12, Hebrews 11. You always want to check out the preacher. They make
Seeking a
mistakes.
country not his own.
Yep, not his own, but the architect and builder of this city, which is what I'm focused on here, he desired a heavenly country. Ultimately is what he was looking for. Abraham knew
New Jerusalem.
it ultimately would be the New Jerusalem. But it wasn't going to be made by man. As impressive as some of that was. So what's the next superscription? The second one.
Names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb.
Okay, they're written on
The stone.
the stones, as I put in there, just help clarify. So probably making them individual, but you could get away with linear and still put names on there. But, 12 foundation stones would be more normal how you do a building. Jim?
I was just kind of curious, is there any indication where we could say Judas was out and Matthias was in?
Into what? His name on the
The list.
stone?
His name on the stone and
Yeah.
Judas's name is not?
I was thinking of Paul. Paul calls himself an apostle.
Right.
Paul, right, the apostle Paul,
But Barnabas was an apostle. There's 15 of them when you go looking for them.
Exactly.
The 12, because it's just a sent one, it's not, it's a title, but it's not. But the 12 and they picked Matthias, and they asked God to tell them which one. I don't know what he's going to
Yeah,
do.
they
I don't
did
know if he'll
about
stick somebody else in there,
15, huh?
because that wasn't God's choice when you go look at that. But they were filling the slot, and the man rose up and filled it. So you'll have to, when you get there, you can just read the names.
If I even care at that point.
Yeah, it may be one of the later things you do.
Yeah.
Kind of when you're sitting there tapping on the pearl to see if
After
it's
about
real.
3 million years, I might go, I wonder.
Yeah. But their names will be there. Whoever the 12 are that he's listing, and it's the 12 apostles of the Lamb, and that makes it a little different, but doesn't change a whole lot. So we're still on this vision when you get over to verse 15. And what did the angel who spoke with John have there?
Gold measuring rod.
Okay, a gold measuring rod. Was that normal? What are they normally made out of?
Read.
Read like.
Okay, they're reeds, is what they are, and we ask you for a definition on it down there. Define rod, it just means a reed. It could describe a staff, it could describe a stalk, because that's what they would have used for walking staffs. It would be a stalk for measuring. They'd go find them, they said they could get them 15 feet long out of the marsh. They let them dry, and it'd be kind of like what we would think of with bamboo today, but I don't think that's what they were. But just a real long stiff rod. And so you could lay there, if you want to measure something 15 feet at a time, it actually works faster than a tape measure. But if you walked it off with one of these GPS things or whatever, that would be different. But you could sit there and just point it, drop it down, lift it back up on the point, drop it down, and just count how many times you did that in order to measure this. How does he do that to get 1,500 miles?
If he has an extra long rod.
Did he measure it? How did he get 15 miles up?
He's an angel.
Who has the rod?
The angel.
So can the angel do that?
Sure, I don't
Okay, well, you guys you're
He can do whatever he wants.
you're looking at me with blank stares. This
Why
is
not?
this is God with an angel measuring. What have I missed there? To measure the city and its gates and its wall. Okay, so all those things are brought up there. That's why he had a gold measuring rod. How heavy would that be? It's not a reed.
What is it?
How heavy would that be?
Could it be hollow though, like a reed, since he used that word?
Possibly, but again, who's carrying it?
Angel.
An angel, so it doesn't really matter.
matter.
But it's totally different. Why make it out of gold? Why not just give an angel a plain old measuring rod?
God likes
Because
gold.
it's God.
Okay, because it's God. Are you going to see this mounted somewhere there? Is there going to be a museum at the city of things that God used? Picture of the angel holding his rod, stuff like that? I have no idea.
I
But
don't think
anyway,
so.
it's where my brain goes in the middle of the night. So how is the city laid out?
I pick.
A cube.
Yeah, I don't think very good.
That's a cube.
Okay, ultimately a cube, but this just says in the text,
As a square.
as a square. What do we call that in geometry?
Cube.
Okay, a cube
Oh,
ultimately,
Quadrilateral.
this word for square, when all sides are equal.
Quadrilateral.
Equilateral.
No.
Oh,
Can you do that with a square as well as triangle?
I don't know.
Because that's how they described it in the text. All sides equal.
But
They're only measuring the city. They're not talking about going up yet. They're only talking about the city.
they say it's 1,500 miles long, wide, and high.
Okay, but that's not what we're measuring right now.
But,
It says that. It's
Go,
like-
just look at what he's talking about.
and
How is the city laid out?
that's,
As a
As
square.
a square. That's all it gives you at that point. If you were to look that up, that square idea is four-angled, four extremities, four corners. It's used in chapter 7, verse 1. It's used in chapter 20, verse 8. That's all that word means at this point. It's not trying to get how many corners in a cube?
I mean, what?
Corners in a cube.
8.
See,
Okay, so we're not talking about that right now. This is a four-angled thing that they're talking about. They're just talking about the city on the bottom. How about I put it that way? That's all he's trying to bring up by the way he's describing this.
but he
So
said
what
at
if-
the end of 16.
what's
it said
that?
Length, width, and height are equal.
But what is it saying right
But
here?
at the beginning of
Oh.
16, it's just length and width.
Yeah, that's all he's trying to bring up at this point.
Oh, okay.
So it could be pyramidal
Okay.
even.
Okay, so he's giving you that. He's telling you how big the city was at this point. How big is it? 1,500 miles. Where are they getting this word for miles? What's it really called in the Greek?
Stadium.
Stadion. Stadion, which is where they get the word stadium from, and it can also be translated as a furlong. Is another word that they use for that. What is the length of a stadium or a furlong?
600
1/8
feet.
of a Roman mile.
Yeah. I got you.
1/8 of a Roman mile is a stadium.
Okay, but this is 1,500 of those.
Yes,
So how big is this?
12,000 furlongs.
well,
Okay,
it comes out to,
it's literally 12,000 furlongs.
Uh-huh.
And so we have to bring that over, we have to translate that into English. They grab onto it and they put 1,500. To me, when you actually break this down and get some better accurate figures on what a stadium really was or furlong really was, they kind of round everything off. You're looking probably more, I wrote in here at 1,342 miles. But again, I don't know, because you don't have the exact measurements. They didn't bring over what they were using in the first century to today. You don't have a museum with it laid out and telling you what exactly those measurements were. They're using some Greek ideas with stadium. They're using some Roman ideas from what came from that period. But if you shorten it down to what it probably is more likely, it's 1,342 miles, which is still really, really big. All right? When I calculated this with the 1,500, it came out to almost 2 million square miles for a city.
whoa,
That's pretty big.
What? Say it again?
2 million square miles is 1,500 by 1,500,
Furlong?
1,500 squared. So that's a large city. Planet Earth has almost how many miles?
Ooh.
2 billion square miles on planet Earth. And they're both almost up to that point. The land is around 29% of that, water 71%. New heaven and new earth, we have no idea what God's doing. No idea what the oceans will be like, what the seas will be like, where they'll be located, what the land's going to be like, because everything during the day of the Lord is leveled. Islands are all moved out of their places. He's destroyed the whole place, but he destroyed it once before by the flood, and those mountains rose up. Those tectonic plates crashed. It didn't look anything like this before the flood, what we're looking at now. And when he gets done with the day of the Lord, it will not look like this again. It'll be refreshed, renovated, changed over. Jerusalem's going to rise up. And so I have many questions of what's going to be going on there, but I don't have answers. But that's the initial thing there. And then he says its length and width and height are equal. What's he mean by that? What's he mean by equal?
The same.
Okay?
Same distance.
Isa means that they're correspondent, they're consistent, can mean the idea that they're proportional or that they're equal, they're like, is that idea there. So you look at this, and the initial thing, what you think of is we're looking at what ultimately I think is a cube, and I go into that at some point here. Don't I? Yeah, very shortly.
But couldn't a pyramid also be that high?
It could,
Pyramid shaped type thing.
but
So
why would God build it into a pyramid?
when there's,
I have no idea.
To make the Egyptians happy.
Why would God build it into a cube?
I have no idea.
So we don't know.
We
And
don't.
again, commentaries will go both.
But
It won't be the structure that God's worried about.
right.
This will be built out of materials that, if you could build out of jasper, the way God's going to do it, it's going to hold up really, really well, like forever.
There's some different light dynamics in a glass pyramid than there is in a glass cube. Is another interesting thing. So
We don't
I'm
know.
not saying I think it's a
But
cube. I'm saying
The
that would
next
also fit
question
the
I put
description.
on here, and now I'm running out of time again. What shape was the Holy of Holies? Oh, wait, I left out miles. When you looked up miles, 4712, it meant stadium, and a stadium was a race course, arena. It was a furlong, it was about 600 feet, and there's the guesstimate. Again, we don't know exactly what that was. They say 1/8 of a Roman mile, but again, they're giving you rough ideas. But that's what the word stadium means. So let's say it's 1,400, claim 1,500 if you want to think it's that. People today, they do a lot with the cubit and even the foot. Jim and I were talking about today, and I went home and looked up some stuff. But the foot was the foot. It was your foot. So again, we've locked that into 12 inches today, but the cubit was your hand. Mine is 19 1/4 inches long. It's when your elbow is put down to the tip of your middle finger, that is a cubit. And they would actually make a measurement. Sometimes they did that with the king's arm was the official one to use. So when you have something like Saul, who was head and shoulders above all others, he could have had a pretty long cubit. I don't know how exactly all that worked, but that's what the measurement is. So it's practical things that they use. Here's the span. It's from the tip of your thumb to the tip of your pinky. That's a span. So they'll say 9 inches. Mine is not 9 inches. But this goes with my mouth. And my foot fits in really well too. So he's trying to lay this out. What shape was the Holy of Holies in 1 Kings 6, 19 and 20?
Cube,
It was a cube. What size was it?
20 cubits.
By
20.
20 cubits by
20
20 cubits. So when he lays that out, it's a cube, because we know that from everything we read about it. And it's 30 feet by 30 feet by 30 feet. That's just what it is. So you kind of get the impression, if this doesn't need a temple, if God, the Father, the Son, the one God is the temple, then you kind of, and he's the temple used there is the naos, the inner shrine, then you kind of get the idea that the structure around it is probably going to be cubical. But I can't prove that. Just like the Holy of Holies was. So how wide was the wall?
72
English
yards,
says
72 yards.
72 yards. Greek says 144 cubits. And that would be 216 feet roughly, depending on what size cubit you use. So there again, it varies. But the idea there is probably the width of the wall. There's no indication whatsoever that this wall has to go up, but I can't exclude it. All right, just to throw things out, we don't know. But it's according to human measurements, which are also
Angelic.
angelic measurements. So I explained the yards are the forearm equals a cubit, 18 to 20 inches. And how do human measurements compare with angelic? They're the same, so he points that out. And what was the wall made of? Jasper, that equals what kind of stone?
Translucent.
Translucent stone. Light passes through. What was the city composed of?
Pure gold.
Pure gold, like
Clear.
clear glass. Pure being cleansed, unobstructed is the word for pure there. Clear is cleansed, pure, unobstructed. Two different words, but Karen, no, I'm sorry. I think those are the same words. I shouldn't speak hastily, I should look. Clear, pure. Yeah, those are the same words, sorry. So I made sure you understand. Both of them are pure, both of them are clear, unobstructed, like glass. So what was on each foundation stone, along with the names of the apostles? Well, they were,
Decorated with every kind of precious.
okay, so a decorator or adorn means,
Garnished, put in order, or trimmed.
Make attractive, appealing. Make attractive or.
okay, made attractive, embellish fits that, but the basic root word means to
Ornament.
order or arrange. So they didn't take a bunch of stones with some silly super glue, stick one there, stick one there, stick one there. This is organized somehow, they're organized. So you don't know exactly what this looks like or how it's laid out, but the names are on there, the stones are made out of certain materials, but they also have precious stones put on them, adorned or ordered or arranged on them, set in order, decorated, garnished, embellished. And how about the word precious? What kind of stones were these?
Of great price.
Valuable.
Valued.
Valued and
Great price.
of great price, okay? Costly, very costly. So these are the best of the best. What did God use for building materials?
That's it.
He didn't go down to Ace Hardware or Home Depot
Or China.
or China. Nobody's ever built a city like this before.
Nobody had the ability to create the
And they couldn't do a city like this anyway. There wasn't enough jasper in the world probably to do what he did. So obviously the New Earth has provided some materials. So what precious stone was each foundation adorned with? These are hard to guess. I'm gonna try to pronounce the names. A couple of them are a little bit strange. But again, jasper we know is translucent, crystal clear. Some want to take jasper today and put a little bit of red in there. And I couldn't find that anywhere, but I don't know. I don't know on most of these.
And it couldn't be a diamond, is that right?
No, it could very well be a diamond,
Okay.
just a different word used at the time. The second is sapphire. What color is sapphire?
Blue.
Blue.
They all agreed with that one.
What kind of blue could it
All
potentially?
shades of blue.
Okay, it could be all shades of blue, so sky blue was one that I found, and some think it was even flecked with gold. That sometimes when they find sapphires, they actually have specks of gold in it,
Oh.
which is fascinating to me, and I kind of go, how did that happen? How did God do that? Because that's how they find it, naturally. How about chalcedony? Harder one to figure out.
It has various
Stone
colors.
of various colors.
And, okay, can vary. The ones that I found when I did find it, Bible dictionary, Vines, concordance, lexicons, they lean toward a copper green, a dark green color. But it could vary. And again, I'm not locking you into any of these. They're hard to attack or to nail down.
When it said a green silicate of copper,
Yeah.
I was thinking, is that like copper when it's oxidized and it gets that
Probably, when you
green
get that
fat?
greenish,
Okay.
they call that patina
Yeah.
on that. That's what they're leaning toward, but I don't know for sure. Because when you get to emerald, which one is that? What kind of green?
Transparent light green.
Okay, it's a lighter green or a bright green, can be transparent depending upon they're all vary. These are going to be unique. You're going to find these as the best of the best. So if I had a gemologist come in here and I'd say, which kind of emerald would you say was the most valuable? And he may narrow these down, but then God may have something totally different from that even as well. Sardonyx,
Reddish
I have a
white.
ring of onyx,
White streak
and
with
it's
what's Ken?
little Jewish girl I dated way back in the day, went to Jerusalem, and she brought me back a ring that had an onyx stone in it.
Onyx or sardonyx?
Onyx.
Okay, that's going to be,
Part of it.
yeah, that's going to be combined. So what did that one look like?
Well, it had kind of like a turquoise blue, it wasn't one color. It had multiple,
Okay, it was variegated?
colors in it.
Okay, so what else did you find looking this one up?
Are we still
white
on sardonyx?
streak with red.
Sardonyx.
What kind
Yours
of
said
red?
just red?
No,
Reddish
no,
white.
it said
Okay, I'm
white.
getting multiple people. Yours said white?
Reddish white.
Okay, reddish white?
Mine said white streaked with red.
Streaked, okay, with layers of red. It might even, I found one that said maybe even layers of brownish red. So, but it's the primary idea here is a white color. It is an onyx. They are different from each other. But, so again, what was it for sure? Don't know, but what's sardius?
All I found was a precious
Brownish
stone.
red.
Precious stone,
Yellowish
A
brown
brownish red
or
carnelian.
brownish red, yellowish.
yellowish
Flesh
brown or
colored.
transparent red.
So they don't know. And I found red, that's what I put down there, don't know. How about chrysolite?
Yellow.
Yellow or golden yellow?
Yeah.
They seem to lock onto that one. How about beryl?
One place said it's now called topaz.
Okay, but I have topaz, which shows you why this is confusing.
Right.
So, okay, they don't know for sure. Beryl is what, 969?
That was an interesting one.
Best known sea green.
Sea green, bluish green.
Pale green.
Oh, that's a different
It's kind of where they're going with that. Jim said pale green. How about this topaz?
Greenish yellow, now called.
Greenish
chrysolite.
yellow,
And they say it's now called chrysolite. Like
which
they
is golden yellow. So there's got to be a distinction. It might be that one is darker and one is lighter. It's hard for us to know. How about chrysoprase? Chrysoprase.
Apple green to dark green.
Apple green, pale green, dark green,
Golden green.
golden green, some kind of green
It
probably.
also mentioned translucent in the one.
Translucent. How do you pronounce the next one?
Yasin.
Jacinth, and how do we say it today?
Jacinth.
They'll call it hyacinth. They'll actually use that. What color is
That's
this?
right.
Purple, dark blue.
Okay, you got a dark blue. It can also go
It
to,
said verging on black.
okay, Linda,
Dark blue verging on black.
okay. Bev, you started to say something?
Oh, I just think hyacinths are purple, but I don't know.
So, and leaning toward violet. So again, hard to say for sure how to lock that one in. The 12th one, amethyst, purple. Kind of lock it in, maybe a little bit of violet. So you may have, if you look at this, and I took some time because you just kind of maybe looked that way just now. I'm seeing them pale or lining them up. Like shades of yellow, shades of green, shades of purple. There may be some of that in here, but we have no way to nail that down. And there is nobody, unless Scripture, which is inspired of God, tells you, describes the color in detail for you. It's very, very difficult for us to know exactly what these were at the time. So what were the 12 gates made of?
Pearl,
Pearls. Each one of the gates was a
single
single pearl, in case you thought maybe there was a whole bunch of pearls strung together. These are each individual. And so I wrote in there, what did I write?
Can God do that?
Can God do this? Yes.
Of course.
Quit reading this book and making it allegorical because you can't figure out how to do it. It's not up to you or me. What was the street of the city made of?
pure gold, like translucent.
There it is. Pure, there's that cleansed, unobstructed gold, like what?
Transparent glass.
Okay, so I had you look up transparent, 1306B. Literally, it means to,
Clearly see through.
two words.
Shine
Clearly
through.
see
Shine through are the two Greek words,
Oh, okay.
but which implies you
Okay,
can
clearly see through.
maybe see through, but at least light can go through, is what it's trying to stress. It can also be, it's literally to shine through or brightness through, is what it's trying to emphasize. But it's translucent, and you run that down a little bit, and it connects with the break of dawn.
Translucent is different than transparent.
Right. Light's going through, but you may not, that's why I want to correct, you may not be able to see through it. But the issue here isn't eyesight, it is light, is what you're trying to get out of the city. You're going to see this city and it will light up. If I went, again, I'm just being hypothetical. If I went up 1,500 miles, I'm going to give you one of my theories here because I don't really want you to write it down. But if I went up 1,500 miles and I filled it with the glory of God, what would that light do? It would spread out. It'd be like a prism where it is going through that city and magnifying potentially, don't know, but at least shining through very brightly. And if it's that high up, it's taking in half of the planet at all times. You have to get on the other side of the planet away from the city to have it shaded. 1,500 miles. But my theory, here's my theory, don't write this down, is that I told Jim today, when they measured the city, I asked myself the question, is he measuring it in its totality? I know what he says there, but again, as you kind of look at the Greek, and I have to go back to what it actually says, it says, he measured the city with the rod 1,500 miles. Okay, then they put a semicolon there. If that is the end of that statement, and he measured all four sides in their 1,500 miles, what would that make each side?
1,500 miles.
375 miles, right?
What?
1,500
If you
miles,
divided 1,500
divide by
by
4,
That's not what it says.
each side is 375. If it's only 1,400 miles, each side is 350. That just changed a lot about the city, because I'm going, oh, I don't know how you can have such a big city on the, well, you can have it on the planet, that's not a problem at all. It's high and lifted up, and it's on its own broad plane, and the ocean may have been pushed out as far as they need to go out on this renovated planet. See, we were always thinking within a box. But if I do that, then what does it do with the height of the city, potentially? Brings it down to 350, 375 miles as well. Don't know. I can't prove it either way from the language. But then it makes the statement, its length and width and height are equal. So equal to what? Equal to each side being 350 miles, 375 miles, or equal to 1,500 each side? I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. But the difference, one big difference again to throw in as we close off, when they had the Garden of Eden, how many people occupied it? 2 people. How big was the garden? The paradise? Don't know. But when you're going to create a city for all believers to go into, how big is it going to have to be? How many believers will there be from planet Earth over 6,000 years of history? Few there be and find it. We're not talking about the billions that have been on the planet. They estimate could have been 7 billion before the flood, because of lifespans and all that was going on, and how much easier it was for people to live. Don't know. But if you even had 15 billion and few there be that find it, what may you be narrowing that down to? True believers.
Oh,
Millions instead of billions.
Even 150 million. But is the city big enough to handle?
Oh, yeah.
What do you not have in the city?
temple.
Roads.
You don't have a temple. You do have streets,
Oh, yep.
which carries the idea of,
Travel ways.
yeah, a little different meaning. That's why I'm trying to be careful grabbing onto this. They bring it over in English and they lock it in. And we'll talk more about that next week also. But you don't need houses. When Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you, what was he referring to? The New Jerusalem. Everybody thinks he's preparing for, and a new body. That would also be potential, but I don't know what he'd have to do to make that happen. He'd just speak it into existence, both of them. But he says, I go to prepare a place for you. And so as you look at this and you realize that place, that I'm not having a mansion on some special place in there, because I don't need a bedroom in a new body. I don't need a kitchen. I don't need a bathroom. What else do you have in your house? I don't need a garage.
Water,
Closet.
I don't need closets. What? I don't need a refrigerator. So you start looking at it, you're going, I don't need a house. What's in this city?
People.
Lots of people, streets, Jesus, God, and I'm pressing the idea that there's one God, and there's one God in that city. God the Father, God the Son will be sitting on the throne. I can't explain that. I can't explain the Trinity. I'm not saying there isn't a Trinity. Don't misunderstand me. But I'm saying when he presents it, and we'll see, and I gave it to you in my translation, that they're one and the same. God is the Lamb. And he'll be sitting on the throne. And you see a couple places, I think again next week, where they're both sitting on a throne. Well, do they have to make room for each other? Anyway, so when you go to Isaiah 43 to 47, in there where there's one God, one God, one God, one God, one God. That's what, and when he goes to Deuteronomy 6, behold, hear, O Israel, the Lord is one. You know, that idea is still stressed. And so you look at that, but I'm going, what else is in the city besides a whole bunch of people? And what are we doing there?
whatever we want.
Worshiping. You'll pick up some things that are going on there. Taking orders. We're reigning with Christ. We're coming in and giving problems. The kings that are going to bring in, I think you see that next week, they're going to bring in their glory. What is that? And where does it go? It's just, I have never had a picture of Jerusalem as I have this study through this time. I got in big trouble years ago when we were going through the, what do they call that? The five-fingered, the colors in the child's,
The wordless book.
the wordless book.
Oh, that's
We're going through that, and I told them that gold does not represent heaven.
the streets of heaven.
And you would have thought in this room that the people, they were going to crucify me.
Heresy.
Because it was in front of all these kids. We've been telling them that's heaven. And I kept telling people, you don't go to heaven after the rapture. You go to be with the Lord, and the Lord will be on planet Earth. And you're going to reign with him on planet Earth. You're not reigning in heaven. And so they go, well, it's heavenly. No. You don't want to mix up the third heaven and the earth. They're different places. So I keep trying to get people to be careful with how you read the Bible. But boy, did I upset people that time. Probably one of the many reasons I asked to move on. We don't need your kind around here. But even at the time, I'm telling them, well, read your Bible. Look what it says. They're walking on the streets of gold. This is the New Jerusalem. This has come down to earth. We're too good at listening. Believers. We're not good enough at study. At being diligent to present ourselves approved. Question, Ken?
No, I made a mistake on that stone. It wasn't onyx, it was a stone called Elat,
Oh.
the King Solomon's stone.
Oh, okay, good. Well,
And-
then
and
that cleared up
it
some
looks
things.
a little bit like a turquoise.
All right. Which may be one of these stones, but who knows? We've lost it all. Let's pray. I've lost it all. Father, we are grateful. Your word is sitting there. You have given us so much. The book of Revelation could have been one chapter long, just chapter 1. Just tell us about your son. That's really all we need to know. But you've given us so much information. As Romans 15:4, I believe it is, says, through the scriptures we have hope. You've given us so much that for us people that are more tangible and want hands-on and want to see with our eyes, kind of like John, the one who leaned over at Jesus' breast and had that close relationship with him. He was geared that way, and I almost feel like you gave him this letter, him in particular, because of who he was and what he needed. And he's passed it on to us. But thank you. Thank you for revealing just a smidgen, just a small little amount about your son and the amazing worship it should draw out of us, and wonder and awe. And we have not yet begun to even imagine what it's going to be like. So far beyond what we're able to think or to, I'll say the word there too. 1 Corinthians 2:9 or whatever it is. But I thank you, Father. In amazement, we study this book. We don't understand everything. Help us not to focus on what we don't know. Help us to focus on what we know and what is obvious. And may we live it out. May we warn people about what's coming. May we challenge people to get to know your Son. May we confront them with their sin. May we offer them the gift of eternal life through your Son's death and resurrection. May we be vibrantly alive in him. And may they ask us for the reason for the hope within us. Help us, Father. Help us not to die off or to hide out in these days. May we not be afraid, but may we be excited to lay down our lives that others might come to know you. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.